U.S. Fish and Wildlife is after the world's most notorious butterfly trafficker.
Everybody knows you're the #1 smuggler.
His global million-dollar business is driving the most delicate, exotic, and beautiful butterflies toward extinction.
He could get you whatever you wanted, whenever you wanted, however you wanted.
The butterfly kingpin continually outsmarts U.S. law enforcement.
He was sneaky, he was careful, he was paranoid.
Just as a caterpillar morphs into this wonder of nature, so a rookie federal wildlife agent must change his identity to net the most elusive butterfly poacher in history.
I was concerned that we could blow it.
Will U.S. Fish and Wildlife finally capture the man known as the Butterfly King? The Earth teems with butterflies. There are over 20,000 species in the world, inhabiting rainforests, flower meadows, and even deserts. For centuries, naturalists have been enchanted by their magical transformation from humble caterpillar to majestic winged adult. Anatomists wonder at their delicate bodies that can migrate thousands of miles, how they can smell with their feet, and how their wing scales refract light into luminous colors. But the butterfly's biggest fans have been generations of amateur enthusiasts who catch them and mount them into collections simply for their beauty. But now the survival of many species is threatened. Logging and intensive farming are destroying their natural habitats.
We are losing habitat, is why our species are disappearing. There are tipping points in any ecosystem. If you damage it beyond repair and that certain players are now missing from that ecosystem, you have irreversibly changed it.
As long as their habitats endure, the butterflies survive, and collecting will be sustainable. But some species are now on the brink of extinction.
There may be millions or billions of butterflies, but I can tell you for certain that there are very few Pallas viridis butterflies, which are the most endangered butterfly in America. And they're actually located in one particular location in the entire world along the Pallas viridis Peninsula, California.
There's an added threat to the rarest and most spectacular species. They're wanted by obsessive collectors.
Some insect collectors actually don't care much about the biology of the animal. It's the collection they're after. They will also have collections of shells, collections of hockey cards and baseball cards. It's actually a different way of thinking.
Some butterflies are so endangered that they're protected by the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, CITES. The United States and 130 other countries have joined CITES to ban any commercial dealing in wild animals and plants that threatens their survival. Alongside the iconic tiger, elephant, and rhino, there are 3 butterflies threatened with extinction on the CITES most endangered list.
So the one up here in the top left-hand corner, this is Papilio chique. This one here is found in a very restricted area of the Philippine Islands. The one to its right, that's Jamaica swallowtail. It's found in higher elevations in some very limited localities on the island of Jamaica. And these 2 down here are members of actually the same species. This is the girl, this is the boy of the Queen Alexandra birdwing.
Trade in these most endangered butterflies is banned. But despite this, fanatical collectors buy them illegally for large sums.
I wouldn't even consider selling these to somebody even if I could. But if you were going to sell them, I think to someone who really needs to have them, you could get into the tens of thousands of dollars here.
The worldwide black market in illegal butterflies is worth an estimated $200 million a year to smugglers. And the most notorious butterfly smuggler of them all is Yoshi Kojima. From his base in Japan, in a 20-year career, Kojima develops a network of butterfly hunters working for him on every continent. And he'll stop at nothing to get the rarest protected specimens.
This guy could collect species of insects that were not available to museums and universities at the time. So he truly had a global network of collectors and suppliers that he could call on to get butterflies and other insects that other people just can't get.
Kojima travels from Japan to target the big money specimens around the world. On the grasslands on the Mediterranean island of Corsica, his hunters target Papilio hospiton, the Corsican swallowtail. Sale price, $1,000 each. It's on the international red list of threatened species, but that doesn't stop Kojima buying and selling them. In Jamaica, he hunts Papilio homerus, a 6-inch swallowtail worth $700. In one remote virgin forest, it's down to the last 50. Yet Kojima keeps on paying for deliveries. Even war can't stop him. The steep mountain slopes of Afghanistan and Tajikistan are the last refuge of Parnassius autocrator. Price tag, $1,000. Kojima pays locals to send him the illegal specimens. But Kojima's greatest skill is smuggling these butterflies back home to Japan. He has ingenious systems in place. In Costa Rica, Kojima bribes a museum employee to mail him endangered butterflies in official museum packaging. Papua New Guinea is where Kojima gets the world's largest butterfly, the Queen Alexandra's birdwing. To sneak them past Japanese customs, Kojima first has his butterfly hunters mail them as plain packets, 8,000 miles, to the Czech Republic. There, an associate disguises them in Czech newspaper and writes the Latin name of a common giant moth on the box. He then sends the package 5,000 miles to Japan. When it arrives, addressed to Kojima, it looks like a perfectly legal shipment.
This guy was known as the world's most wanted butterfly smuggler. He was known as being clever, as being boastful, arrogant, and literally bragging to people.
But then, Kojima targets butterflies in America. There he makes a powerful enemy, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. He's been reported for raiding the Grand Canyon National Park for the caterpillars of protected American butterflies. He's suspected of smuggling the chrysalises to Japan, where he hatches the butterflies, kills them, and sells them.
The idea of somebody intentionally going into a protected area within the United States, taking wildlife out of there, and then selling it internationally is really something that is appalling.
The scene is set for an epic battle between U.S. Fish and Wildlife and the world's most notorious butterfly smuggler. Yoshi Kojima is the world's most notorious butterfly smuggler. From his base in Japan, he's evaded wildlife protection laws for 20 years. But by targeting butterflies in America, he's now come up against the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. In 2003, the Kojima file lands on the desk of Agent Ed Newcomer. Based in the LA office, he's a rookie, just 11 months into his dream job.
If you can find a career where you can protect either children or animals, you've found a calling where you're wearing the white hat.
From the Kojima file, newcomer learns that a fish and wildlife informant says that Kojima will be trading at the LA annual bug fair. The LA Bug Fair takes place at the Natural History Museum each spring. Stall holders sell weird and wonderful insects and butterflies, all legal specimens. It attracts swarms of enthusiasts and serious collectors.
The insect fair is a huge marketplace for collectors of any kind, serious and amateur. For the collector, it's a one-stop shop.
The rookie newcomer wants to try his hand as an undercover agent. But his boss, Marie Palladini, isn't so sure.
When Ed Newcomer came here, he didn't have any undercover background at all. I told him, well, I think we can try, and let's see what we can find for you to start small.
So, Palladini gives newcomer a very basic task.
My mission was simply to go to the bug fair and just try to find Yoshi Kojima.
It will be his first time undercover. The job seems simple enough, but even the most basic undercover task needs careful preparation.
When you're working an undercover case, you're essentially living a lie. That's very difficult to do, and it's very difficult to maintain.
First, newcomer invents an undercover name, Ted Nelson.
So I chose Ted because it's very similar to Ed, and if it's shouted, I will answer to it.
Then he erases every trace of Ed Newcomer, the special agent. He puts together a Ted Nelson wallet, complete with credit cards and driver's license, that he must always carry when undercover. Finally, he must remember that Ted Nelson is not married.
Just to protect my personal life and my wife, I never wore my wedding ring when I went undercover.
As he heads out to the LA Bug Fair, Palladini reminds newcomer not to approach Kojima.
Don't push it, because we don't really want you to meet him yet.
The LA Bug Fair is a huge event for the legitimate insect trade. Newcomer scans the crowds for Kojima. One stall is busier than all the others. There, through the crowd, he spots his target. The agreed plan is to stay back and just watch. But the rookie thinks he sees an opportunity and approaches Kojima.
Without training in undercover work, that was a big step. But somebody like Kojima, I was concerned that we could blow it.
Newcomer improvises, telling Kojima he'd like to start collecting. But with no detailed cover story, he's vulnerable if his target starts asking questions. Kojima, though, doesn't seem to suspect Ted, and they part on good terms. It looks like he's gotten away with it.
But at the end of the day, I remember very clearly standing in a crowd of people, and I felt a tap on my shoulder. And I turned around, and panic went through my entire body.
It's Kojima. He's carrying a box. Inside are mounted butterflies to help Ted Nelson start his collection. But something much more valuable is on the outside.
I noticed that his email address was listed on the top of the box.
Kojima's private email address is Newcomer's way in.
Basically, what he was doing was giving me a gift, which indicated he wanted to be friends, and giving me a way to personally contact him. Of course, I thanked him and couldn't believe the luck.
Back at Fish and Wildlife, Newcomer reports to his boss what he did and how Kojima reacted. Although he deviated from the planned operation, Palladini decides he should keep going.
So I thought, well, now we've set this in motion, I'm not going to pull it out from under it because I saw the potential for a good case. I wasn't the best rule follower all the time either when it came to catching bad guys. I thought, well, we'll figure it out.
Newcomer the Rookie is now at the center of a major investigation. A detailed cover story to convince a career criminal like Kojima usually takes months to research and develop. But because Newcomer has rushed in, they have just days.
One of the things that I wanted to make sure is that Ed could maintain this new person, that he could be Ted Nelson, without putting any holes in his cover.
Newcomer is given an untraceable phone number and a secure email account to contact Kojima. He must also create a convincing backstory.
Ted Nelson inherited a business from his father. It was a wholesale marine supply equipment company.
I don't think Kojima really knew anything about marine supplies, and that was probably good.
The cover story is soon put to the test. Kojima asks to meet Ted Nelson in an LA coffee shop.
That's always a good sign when you're working an undercover case where the suspect or the bad guy contacts the agent and says, let's meet.
The plan is for Palladini to provide backup, posing as a customer in the cafe. And Newcomer is wired to record what Kojima says as evidence.
The cafe was a big enough place that I could sit at a distance but still watch Kojima and Ed. And I wanted to look at Kojima, but I didn't want to stare at him.
Kojima arrives right on time. He seems glad to see his new friend, Ted Nelson. Soon, Kojima reveals why he was so keen to meet Ted. He has a plan. He invites Ted to go into business with him, selling butterflies on an internet auction site.
He would send them to me from Japan. I would sell them. I'd do the shipping from the States to the customers, and then we'd split the money 50-50.
Then, the agents hear Kojima openly make a criminal proposition.
He flat out told me that the protected butterflies we would ultimately sell would be illegal.
Newcomer agrees to the deal. He sees the internet business offer as an ideal opportunity to gather damning evidence against Kojima. But catching the world's most notorious butterfly smuggler won't be that easy. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is mounting an undercover operation to catch the world's most notorious butterfly smuggler, Yoshi Kojima. It's Agent Ed Newcomer's first undercover case. Posing as Ted Nelson, he agrees to work with Kojima, selling endangered butterflies over the internet. If the plan works, he'll gather vital evidence to catch Kojima red-handed. Kojima now activates his illegal supply network, scouring the earth for valuable, endangered butterflies. In just a few weeks, he flies from Costa Rica to Madagascar to Papua New Guinea to meet with his poachers. Day or night, Kojima phones Ted to update him on progress. But this leads to a problem the rookie hasn't thought of. His secure phone line is in his office, so he's not available 24/7. It's a bad mistake.
And he wasn't happy with my excuse. He'd get angry with me and he wouldn't talk to me for 3 or 4 days or a week or more.
Kojima becomes suspicious. Why isn't Ted available to answer his calls?
I always described him like a junior high school boyfriend or girlfriend. The type of person where if you fail to call one night, they won't talk to you for 3 weeks. And that's kind of the way Kojima was.
Newcomer fears Kojima is backing out of the deal.
So at some point, we reached the impasse where I was ready to go, but he wasn't sending me any butterflies.
With no butterflies, Newcomer has no evidence to convict his target.
I was stumped a little bit on how to break this impasse. So one of the things I decided to do was to demonstrate to him that I could establish a good customer base for him.
As Ted Nelson, Newcomer posts on an insect chat room that he's in business with a very well-known Japanese butterfly dealer.
Everyone that contacted me knew that I was talking about Yoshi Kojima. They mentioned him by name and were excited that I was working with Kojima and could potentially get insects for them.
If Newcomer thought this would please Kojima, he's wrong. He's outraged to be linked openly to selling illegal butterflies.
Kojima was furious with me. Basically, he accused me of being careless, said that I would get him caught by law enforcement.
With Kojima still not sending any butterflies, Newcomer hatches another plan. He pretends to set up his own online auction with a rival butterfly supplier, hoping to make Kojima jealous and win him back. It's another mistake.
Unfortunately, he saw me as a competitor of his, and instead of reaching out to me, he retaliated against me.
Instead of offering to work with Ted, Kojima tries to eliminate him. He reports him to the authorities. This is the recording of what he said.
When I heard that recording, I knew immediately that it was Yoshi Kojima who had made the call and turned me in. I knew at that point that he had thrown me to the wolves and was ending the relationship.
My review of the case at this point was, I think we need to close this. Ed didn't like that. He really wanted to keep going.
Agent Newcomer has failed. It's his first major case, and he's blown it. All because of a rookie's mistake.
And I think one of the things that new agents don't realize is you have to be patient.
It seems Yoshi Kojima has evaded capture once again. For the next 2 years, Newcomer throws himself into case after case, learning his trade. He goes undercover, posing as a scout for a TV show to investigate sea otter shootings. He investigates illegal piranha trafficking and chameleon smuggling from Hawaii. As he gains experience, he gains in skill.
He could dig a little deeper into the investigation and find out what's going on in this person's brain and their actions and really get into the intent of the bad guy.
The rookie develops into a seasoned undercover operative.
He really became an agent that a lot of agents look up to and say, gee, I wish I could work undercover cases like that.
Then, out of the blue, U.S. Fish and Wildlife gets startling news. Kojima is back.
I thought, oh no, here we go.
It's spring 2006. time again for the annual LA Bug Fair. The intel is that the elusive butterfly smuggler will be there.
This was my last chance to bring him to justice.
It's been 3 years since Newcomer first met the master smuggler as a rookie agent. Has he learned enough to outwit the devious Kojima? Criminal butterfly dealer Yoshi Kojima and undercover U.S. Fish and Wildlife agent Ed Newcomer parted as enemies. But 2 years later, Kojima is back in America and back at the LA Bug Fair. Newcomer still wants to put him behind bars.
I felt Ed needed another chance to do this, and Ed had grown so much.
This time, he's determined to do it right.
I really wanted to see Kojima incarcerated.
At the Bug Fair, he must somehow rebuild his broken friendship with the world's most wanted butterfly smuggler.
I was going to try to engineer an accidental encounter between me and Kojima. Between the two large exhibit halls, there's a narrow hallway, and I knew that when he left the hall he was in, he would have to pass through that narrow hallway.
Newcomer has no idea how Kojima might react.
He looked very afraid when I first ran into him. He knew he'd turned me into law enforcement, and yet here I was not in jail. I think he was afraid that I knew he had turned me in.
This time, Newcomer has his cover story well prepared.
I told him that somebody had turned me into the Fish and Wild guys, but that I'd followed his advice and didn't keep any material in my house. And I told him if it wasn't for him, I'd be in jail.
Newcomer's flattery works.
He immediately trusted me again because he thought I was now a criminal just like him.
That was a really pivotal point in the case, showing Ed's growth and development in how to outsmart the bad guy.
Kojima resurrects their plan to go into business together. As before, he heads to Japan to source rare butterflies for Ted to sell online. But this creates a complication.
That Agent Newcomer was in the United States and Kojima was in Japan. There was no ability to meet face to face and to conduct a video surveillance.
Newcomer needs video evidence to show in court if he's to convict Kojima. But they're thousands of miles apart. Then he gets a lucky break. This time, it's the butterfly trafficker who makes a big mistake. He suggests they keep in touch via webcam. At home, Agent Newcomer rigs a camcorder to tape their online conversations. If he can get Kojima to talk, he can gather all the evidence he needs.
When Kojima reached out to Agent Newcomer by Skype, that essentially put the noose around his own neck.
Kojima starts bombarding Ted with video calls late in the evening and deep into the night. This time, Newcomer always answers.
This was my last chance to bring him to justice, so I had to be available to him. If he called me on my cell phone, I had to answer. If he wanted to communicate, I pretty much had to be available.
As they chat, Newcomer inserts questions to gather evidence.
What were you saying about cash and not having them pay in checks?
So you got to be careful. You have no evidence, just cash.
After a month of video calls, Kojima starts to supply Ted with protected butterflies.
He would show me an endangered butterfly and tell me the price. And 7 to 15 days later, I would receive a package with that butterfly very stealthily hidden inside the package.
Week by week, as their relationship grows, Newcomer learns just how massive Kojima's criminal operation is. The Butterfly King tells him he earns up to $50,000 every month.
Just in my dealings with him, he offered to sell me over $300,000 worth of protected butterflies.
After 4 months of recording the calls, it's time to set the final trap. Ted asks Kojima to commit the worst possible butterfly smuggling crime.
The serious money in the butterfly trade is the highly protected species, the endangered species. Often these are very beautiful butterflies, some of them as large as a bird.
Newcomer asks Kojima to send him a pair of giant Queen Alexandra's bird wings, one of the world's rarest butterflies and the biggest. The female Queen Alexandra's birdwing can be up to 1 foot across. The smaller male is exceptionally beautiful, a shimmering iridescent blue-green. In Papua New Guinea, this magnificent giant butterfly survives in just 7 small patches of ancient rainforest, cut off by vast oil palm plantations. Amazingly, Kojima claims he can supply this rare, spectacular species from his private stock. The special knockdown price to Ted is $8,000. Collectors pay much more. But knowing it's risky, Kojima seems reluctant to supply the illegal butterflies. Newcomer flatters Kojima's ego to try and keep him sweet.
Everybody knows you're the #1 smuggler.
That's true.
Kojima eventually agrees to make the deal. It's now make or break. If he doesn't deliver, the case will fold. In Los Angeles, wildlife agent Ed Newcomer has baited a trap for the notorious butterfly trafficker Yoshi Kojima in Japan. He's asked him to mail a giant endangered Queen Alexandra's birdwing. If it arrives, Newcomer will have all the evidence he needs to put him in jail. All he can do now is wait.
I still didn't believe that I was actually going to get those butterflies. So once I paid the money, I fully expected to pay him $8,000 and never see that butterfly. I was shocked when I opened the package, and hidden among, a few hundred very common butterflies were this male and female pair of extremely rare endangered Ornithoptera alexandrins.
At last, Newcomer has the evidence he needs to arrest Kojima. But there's one remaining problem. Kojima is in Japan.
It's great to have all the evidence in the world, to have an airtight case. But if you don't have a body to prosecute, at the end of the day, you really have nothing.
As long as Kojima stays in Japan, he's safe.
Given the nature of the extradition treaty with Japan, it was going to be very difficult to successfully extradite him into the United States.
How can Newcomer get Kojima to overcome his fear of what he calls the fish and wild guys and come to the U.S.? Recalling their online chats, something becomes very clear to him.
In the course of my conversations with Kojima, it became apparent to me at some point that he had a sexual attraction to me. He would ask me sometimes to take my shirt off, show him parts of my body. Of course, I always declined and laughed it off and made it kind of a joke between the two of us.
But this is no joke. So Newcomer decides to exploit a proven technique used for centuries: the honey trap. He hopes that Yoshi Kojima might be tempted to come to America because he is in love with the person he thinks is Ted Nelson. It all depends just how strong that attraction is. One night, it becomes very clear.
He asked me if I could show him my beautiful thing.
Can I see your beautiful thing? Yeah, I can sleep tonight.
Newcomer makes his play.
I immediately capitalized on his infatuation with me, and I told him not until he comes to Los Angeles.
Kojima can't resist.
When Agent Newcomer called me to tell me that Kojima was on a plane, that he had left Japan and that he was due to land in Los Angeles, I couldn't believe it. I was ecstatic because I realized we were going to get our guy.
When Kojima's flight touches down at LAX, the Fish and Wildlife team moves into place to arrest him as he leaves immigration. Newcomer hangs back. He doesn't want to reveal his true identity yet. But Kojima doesn't show.
He came off the flight. We knew he was coming in. I didn't see him. We didn't see him. We never got the tip from customs that he was there. And we were all concerned. Where is he?
It seems the cunning smuggler has given them the slip. Then, by an exit, a familiar figure catches Newcomer's attention.
Just by sheer coincidence, out of the corner of my eye, I recognized the walk.
Kojima is intercepted almost at the exit. Agent Newcomer has got his man at last. And when they meet, Kojima's in for an even bigger shock. The world's most notorious butterfly smuggler, Yoshi Kojima, has been arrested. Next day, federal wildlife agent Ed Newcomer goes to pick him up.
He looked very happy to see me.
At first, Kojima thinks it's his friend, Ted Nelson.
But it didn't take him long to glance down at my waist and see the belt badge and my holster. He very quickly became confused when I pulled my handcuffs out.
Gradually, the awful truth dawns on Yoshi Kojima.
He asked me if I had been a Fish and Wild guy the entire time. And I said yes. And then he was quiet for a long time. And he saw my wedding ring, and he asked me if I'd been married the whole time. And I said yes. And then he was quiet, and he never said another word to me the whole day.
It's an undercover triumph. The butterfly kingpin has been completely taken in.
Agent Newcomer's unassuming exterior is clearly one of the key reasons that he is such a lethally effective undercover agent. People never see him coming.
I watched Ed grow through this case. Ed has blossomed into an excellent undercover agent.
The evidence Newcomer has gathered proves overwhelming. Kojima has no choice but to plead guilty to 17 felony charges.
I was extremely satisfied and happy that we'd actually caught somebody who had boasted himself that he was the world's most wanted butterfly smuggler.
Kojima serves nearly 2 years in federal prison and is then deported. He can never return to the U.S. This win for U.S. law enforcement is a victory for some of the most beautiful and fragile creatures on Earth.
This is a serious crime with consequences. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service agents will pursue you, we will catch you, and we will put you in jail.
Rare and endangered butterflies will be preserved for future generations as long as U.S. Fish and Wildlife agents fight illegal animal trafficking.